One of my favourite things in my annual driving around Europe, which I've been doing now for almost 60 years, is the road between Nice and Rome, around the corner of the beginning of Italy. It's a fabulous drive through tunnels with the most incredible view over the cliffs of the Mediterranean. It really is fantastic, but I have to tell you, you can't really see it on film, even with the use of the new technology like drones and so on and so forth. They simply do not give you the beauty of driving around that area. I have tried to do so, and I suggest you look back on one of the earlier Evicted Bites Back if you want to see that from a year ago in 2023. But other than that, I'm afraid you'll have to do that drive yourself. It's a long drive from Nice to Rome, so much so that in recent years I've stopped doing it in one because it's an 8 or 9 hour drive, and I tend these days to stop overnight or even for 2 or 3 nights at the wonderful city of Florence. I have several countries that are my favourites in the world. Obviously, top of the list is the United Kingdom and the United States of America. I am half American. My father was from America. I love both those two countries, probably beyond all others. But then I do also have countries I love to visit. I made a vow when I first went to Paris that I would go to Paris every year of my life if possible. And it's the same for Italy and Rome. I think Italy and France are fantastic countries. I also, as you may well have guessed, adore Morocco. And then coming up behind is Tunisia, which I love, Germany, which I really like a lot, and some of the Scandinavian countries. Denmark is my favourite of the Scandinavian countries. And then I do like to travel abroad, although no longer. My old bones won't sit on a plane for hours and hours anymore. I really don't like air travel if I can avoid it. I much prefer trains and cars, thank you very much, or even walking. But actually I used to love travelling, and there are lots of countries around the world I used to love to visit, probably particularly Thailand, which has the greatest food and the most physically beautiful people in the world. And I've got to say, not only physically beautiful, but the Thais are also beautiful human beings to mix with. But I'm happy to be back in Italy. Definitely one of my 5 favourite countries in the world. I love the Italians, and they seem to love me. They all call me molto simpatico. I was very sad to hear last week of the death of Mark James, a superb songwriter. You Were Always on My Mind, Suspicious Minds, and actually the song which I gave to him the biggest sales of anything he ever wrote, which was because of my ooga jugga ooga ooga idea. He wrote Hooked on a Feeling. And when I did my version of it with the ooga jugga ooga ooga at the beginning, it turned into a huge hit, sadly only a smallish hit for me, but a huge hit for a cover version of it, identical cover version of it from Sweden by a group called Blue Swede and a guy called Bjorn Skifs. And that was actually massive, went to #1 for weeks and weeks in America. It's constantly used in films and TV series and everything else. So Mark James, who I think was 83 or 84, R.I.P. We're all getting older and they're beginning to drop off the branches like you would not believe.
Ooga chugga ooga 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 chugga ooga 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 chugga ooga 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 chugga ooga ooga stop this feeling deep inside of me. Girl, you just don't realize what you do to me. When you hold me in your arms so tight, you let me know everything's alright. Hooked on a feeling, high on believing that you're in love with me. Lips are sweet as candy, the taste stays on my mind. Girl, you keep me thirsty for another cup of wine. I've got it bad for you, girl, but I don't need a cure. I'll just stay addicted and hope I can endure all the good love when we're all alone. Keep it up, girl, yeah, you turn me on. Hooked on a feeling, I'm high on believing that you're in love with me. All the good love when we're all alone. Keep it up, girl, yeah, you turn me on. Hooked on a feeling, I'm high on believing that you're in love with me. Hooked on a feeling, high on believing that you're in love with me. Hooked on a feeling, I'm high on believing.
For those of you who don't know the story of Hooked on a Feeling, if you've heard it before, I may well have told you it before. Skip this and move on to the next part. But it was a song written by Mark James, originally recorded as a country song by B.J. Thomas. And I wasn't keen on B.J. Thomas's version. It had a sitar or something going wah wah wah, and it was very country. I'm hooked on a feeling. But I thought that's a great song, and it needs being done in a different way. It needs to be done in a pop way. And I came up with the idea of starting it off with the intro, with giving it as a reggae feel intro, but not on the usual guitars and bass and drums so on kind of reggae feel, using some kind of different instruments. And I thought I want to use male voices. So I came up with this idea of oonka chugga, oonka, oonka, oonka chugga, oonka, oonka, which sounds like a reggae rhythm. And that started the song. And I recorded it to great acclaim from the musicians. My bass player, Herbie Flowers, still with us at the time of broadcasting, I was in touch with him a few weeks ago, loved it so much, the idea so much, that he insisted on staying in the control room all the way through, recording all the rest, the vocals, the strings and everything else, and mixing it until it was completed, because he thought it was such an original idea. Anyway, it came out and was a decent sized hit for me in the UK and around the world in various places, but not at all in America. And I blame the American record company, who were London Records, distributing my UK records label at the time, and really weren't very good at breaking unusual tracks. I thought it was a hit in America, but it never turned into one by me. Anyway, a few years later, rather disappointed by that, but a few years later I had a call from a friend in America, a man called Al Khoury, who was a legendary head of promotion at Capitol Records, which was the EMI branch of the company in Los Angeles. And he said to me, Jonathan, I've always loved your version of Hooked on a Feeling, and it's now been covered by this Swedish group, and we've been offered it. Do you mind if we take it and put it out? If you don't want us to do it, we won't, because you're a friend of mine. I thought, what a nice thing to do. And I said, no, feel fine, do it, you know. thinking to myself, well, look, you know, it was an almost identical copy of my version of it. It had actually happened when the guy who was behind Blue Swede, which was the name he gave to the non-existent group, was a man called Bjorn Skiffs. And he had phoned me up, actually, and asked for my permission to cover it after my version had come out in Sweden and not been a hit. And I said, yeah, very kind of you to ask. It's not my song, so therefore I'm really not entitled to actually give permission or whatever. But no, you certainly have my permission. Good luck with it. Thinking, well, you only sell 20 or 30,000 records if you go to number one in Sweden, so who cares? And indeed, it was a big hit in Sweden, and then got offered through EMI to Capitol in America. So Al Khoury phoned me up and asked for my permission, again, which he didn't need to do, which was just very kind of him, which was really what a friend does. You know, I have to tell you, the music industry is not as bad as people make out. There's a lot of decent people in it and a lot of friends in it, although I fear Al has long gone from us now, as indeed most of my friends in and out of the music industry are, and probably so should I be. Anyway, so they put it out in America and it was huge, and it went to number one for week after week. And another friend of mine on the radio in America, who had been on a station called KRLA, a little Los Angeles station, when I had my first and only big hit in America, Everyone's Gone to the Moon, in 1965, was a DJ called Casey Kasem, and he had become a friend too. And Casey went on to become the DJ on the syndicated radio show of the Billboard Top 40 chart, which became absolutely enormous in America. Anybody of my age or even a bit younger will remember that in the States. It was like the equivalent in America of Top of the Pops over here. And every week that Blue Swede was at number one, Casey said, congratulations, Blue Swede, yet again you're at number one, but yet again I intend to play the original version of this by Jonathan King, and played my version. So for however long it was, I think 8 weeks or something, the number one record, which was by Blue Swede, he didn't play. Instead, he played my version. Now that's again friendship for you. And even though I've never made much money from it, because you don't get paid for an arrangement, I still have no regrets. A, I think I made a damn good record. B, I thought it was a very clever arrangement. C, I'm delighted it made a fortune for Mark James, the songwriter. And D, R.I.P. Mark James, thanks for the song.
Beg me to come to your party, but I don't hear a word that you say. You can squeeze me and tease me, appease me and please me, but I don't want to be gay. You say I'll be glad when I get there, that you'll show me a new way to play. You can hustle me, bustle me, fuss me, muscle me, but I don't want to be gay. You can try anything that you want with me, but you're not gonna change my lifestyle. You can fluff me, rebuff me, and ruffle me, but you ain't gonna tell on a smile. You're trying to get what you want from me, but I'm just gonna do it my way. You can tug me and bug me and plug me and juggle me, but I don't want to be gay. You can tug me and bug me and plug me and juggle me, but I don't want to be gay.
The general election, and where better to speak about it than from Florence, where civilization started long before anybody in the United Kingdom, even in Surrey, even in West 2 London, had even thought of civilization or society. Well, we're faced at the moment with a choice between nobody. Nobody seems to be talking any sense. Everybody seems to be taking extreme angles. You've got the far right, as they call it, or the parties that espouse only a certain level of things that actually are on the right of thinking and won't even contemplate something vaguely on the left. And we've got the people on the left also only contemplating positions on the left and not even thinking that some of the positions on the right may be right. And we've got people in the middle who simply are really not aware of what to do either. I always used to vote Lib Dem, or Liberals as they were. In fact, I was offered a safe seat for the Liberals many years ago by Clement Freud. Remember Clement Freud? He was a Liberal. And he approached me at the time when I was a really big name and a big star and said, look, we know your sympathies are with the Liberals. My family was friends with Joe Grimmond, who is a leader of the Liberals, and I met Jeremy Thorpe when I was 14, and his mother, who came to my mother's house. I said to my mother after they left, well, he's a queen, obviously. And my mother was rather shocked that a 14-year-old would even know what a queen was, but roared with laughter and said, yes, I think you're probably right. But I do actually tend to veer towards the liberal position on things. And Clement Freud approached me and said, we want to give you a safe Liberal seat. I said, there's no such thing as a safe Liberal seat. They only had half a dozen seats at the time anyway. He said, oh, yes, there is. And the seat was Orkney and Shetlands, which was Joe Grimmond's seat. And I said, well, thank you so much. A, I don't want to be an MP. B, I don't want to be anything in politics. But C, I certainly don't want to be an MP for Orkney and Shetlands, which is so many miles to the north that it would take me 4 days to reach there every time. And also is in Scotland. And I can't stand Scotland or the Scots. They drive me mad. Stupid accents, ghastly food, men wearing skirts. There is nothing to be said for Scotland. I'm sorry, I'm joking. But I'm not a fan of Scotland, although I do have lots of friends there. And actually I love both Edinburgh, which is gorgeous to look at, the most beautiful city in the UK, along with Bath, and Glasgow, which I really love because it's full of people. And I love big cities full of people. That's one of the reasons I love Casablanca in Morocco, which is actually the biggest city, although one of the least attractive cities in Morocco. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I declined the offer kindly, thank you, and politely, and went on to do the occasional vote. I did tend to vote for the Liberals more than anyone else. Then it got to a stage where I was thinking, you know what, I don't agree with any of the parties, really. I voted, for example, for Boris Johnson as Mayor of London, only because Ken Livingstone, who I previously voted for and I really liked as a human being, decided to bring in a big tax for large cars, especially Rolls Royces. And I thought, I can't have that, and voted Conservative for the first time. And I did vote for Labour when Tony Blair took over, because I'd met him and I thought he was a really decent guy with a really good image, all of which he was, but he wasn't a very good Prime Minister, in my humble opinion. Anyway, recently, as I've often said, I supported Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell. I thought, whilst I disagree with 80% of their policies, I thought that they were honest and decent men with no real ambition to lead the country, simply a desire to do so for the good of the people of the country. And there's so few people like that, especially politicians. I thought, give him a chance. And especially when the media took against him for obvious reasons, and the opposition used the obvious ways to destroy someone, anti-Semitism, although they didn't accuse him of being a paedophile, as I don't know. That's normally the way they go. So essentially, I was rather sad that Corbyn, who I still think of as a really decent, good man, who I think probably would have been a very good Prime Minister, at the moment, I think they're all ghastly. I could never vote for Keir Starmer after, as Director of Public Prosecutions, he brought in the police edict. You will be believed even if you are lying, cunts. And so, as a result, Starmer is totally out. I think I would vote for Labour if Corbyn was there still as the head of Labour, especially if it was a coalition, because I think the best government we've had was when the Cameron and Nick Clegg coalition led it, because the Lib Dems tempered down all the mad right-wing ideas like, let's have a referendum on Brexit. Stupid! Things like that could not have happened under the coalition, which I thought was a pretty good government. And I think Labour, under someone like Corbyn, I quite like the look of Wes Streeting, although he talks a lot of rubbish too, but led by someone decent, and in coalition with a party led by someone decent, like the Lib Dems led by someone else other than Ed Davey, who's a clown. Yes, that might work, but at the present moment, I'm afraid my message has to be, when the general election comes up in a couple of weeks' time, do not vote. Florence, of course, is another example of how you have to see things for yourself. My favourite artists are Van Gogh, the painter, and Michelangelo, the sculptor and painter. And Michelangelo's statue of David is, in my opinion, the greatest work of art humanity has ever produced. I particularly love it because when I'm in Italy, I quite often visit the quarries that the marble is taken out of, one of which Michelangelo used to carve the statue of David. But it's another prime example. You can't look at photographs, you can't see film, you can't see all the various fake Davids all over the place, including in Florence. It's not the same as the real thing. You stand in front of the real thing and you will swear you can see it breathing. You can swear you see life in the statue. It is the most incredible experience, and yet another example of how, I'm sorry, nothing is as good as seeing it for yourself in person. There is a wonderful hotel in Florence called the Villa Cora. I've stayed there several times, and I always used to think it was where Napoleon used to stay. No, apparently it was bought by his widow years ago, centuries ago, and turned into a fantastic villa and then became a hotel. And it is actually gorgeous. The rooms are fabulous, the decoration is fantastic. It's also got a great restaurant that serves absolutely terrific food. I thoroughly recommend the Villa Cora. I can no longer afford to stay there. It's terribly expensive since the pandemic, or the panic-demic. And I stay at another hotel in Florence called the Villa Tolomei, which is actually just as nice in many ways, and in fact in some ways even nicer. The view is fantastic. The swimming pool is actually far better. The restaurant is not nearly as good, the food isn't great, but the rooms are lovely and beautiful, and they always put me in a beautiful suite with a bathtub and first-rate Wi-Fi. So I'm happy there. I tend to stay there and occasionally pop over to dine at the Villa Cora. As you look at the beautiful Villa Cora and the Villa Tolomei and lovely Florence, Keir Starmer being arrested. Well, it doesn't seem to have happened yet. My sources tell me the enablers are telling the complainants to wait until Keir Starmer is Prime Minister. Bigger story, more money. Let's wait and see. Watching the football, of course, I always support UK teams, especially England, but also I'm a big supporter of Belgium, because I'm a big fan of Kevin De Bruyne. watching what's going on there, I suspect Belgium will come back in their second and third games, win both, and may well go on to win the tournament. And I hope you watched Lost Boys and Fairies' final episode and saw that fantastic appearance by the birth mother. Anyway, there we go. From glorious Florence, I'm off to Rome. See you next time for A Victim Bites Back 87.